Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mormon Stories Podcast. I'm your host, John Dehlin. It is December 9th, 2025, and today we're answering the question, what happens when a Mormon wife becomes the provider when the LDS Church's proclamation on the family says that the husband should be the provider and preside? That's what we're going to be talking about today. I am joined by my wife and co-host, Margie. Hey, Margie.
Hello.
And we are so grateful to have in studio Cate Smith. Hey, Cate.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Yeah, we loved your story and we're excited to have you. So thanks for traveling here.
Anytime.
Really quickly, we want to thank our donors that make Mormon Stories possible. We couldn't do it without you. If you're not a donor, the way that you can support us, we don't do sponsorships or product placement. All we ask is that, people sign up for monthly support. So if you value this content and want to see it continue, go to mormonstories.org/donate and click on the donate button, become a monthly donor. It's always super helpful also if you can like and subscribe and comment, because that helps get the word out. Anyway, without any further ado, Cate Smith, anything you want to say before we jump into your story?
Absolutely. I would like to set a bit of an intention because I know I have some believing family who are going to watch this. And I want to say first off that I wanted to do this, A, simply because I wanted to, and I think there's value in that. And B, I believe that story, and specifically Mormon Stories podcast, helped me a lot in one of the hardest decisions of my life. And it helped me feel heard, not crazy, and just like that things could be fine. And also that I want them to know that I tried really, really hard. I tried really hard to stay and make it work. And it was really hard. And I had to eventually leave for my health. And I'm still here because I left. So, and I'm sorry, I know it causes pain to my believing family members who to my face have been very kind and loving. But I know it causes pain, and I want them to know it was very painful for me to leave.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, this stuff runs deep, doesn't it?
It does. I was bought in all the way.
Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't see my life going any other way other than being Mormon to the very end.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we're all on the edge of our seats. So before we talk about the end of your Mormon story, where does your Mormon story begin?
It begins where most people's begin. I have pioneer ancestry on my father's side. They settled in the Idaho Falls area. So he grew up deep in the Mormon culture to the point where it was like we weren't allowed to use face cards at home because one person one time said they're not allowed. And my mom grew up in a convert household. Her parents joined the church May 1978, which I find significant. It's the month before the temple and priesthood ban was lifted. They did not know about it when they joined.
Where was she living?
She was living in Oregon. No, they were in California.
Okay.
They first lived in California, and they ended up moving to Oregon because they wanted a bit of a fresh start and a little bit of space from their old life. So they moved up to the Portland area, specifically Lake Oswego. And my mom grew up in a household where it was very much like about Jesus and the temple. I think the doctrine of temple ceilings really was attractive to my granny because she lost her mom when she was about 10 or 11, which was obviously devastating, and really wanted to feel a connection to her. My granny had grown up Christian. I don't know which denomination. It wasn't Catholic. I know that. It might have been Episcopalian or Lutheran, one of those. But she really wanted religion for her children. And she church shopped for a while and then eventually said, the next time those missionaries knock on my door, I'm letting them in. And she did. And they've been a part of it ever since. And so my mom grew up in like a devout believing, but rules were kind of loose. Like modesty wasn't a big emphasis. You could play with your friends on Sunday at our house, but not their house. So just kind of funny things like that. Because my granny's not really a rule follower, but felt attracted to the church for doctrinal reasons.
Yeah.
So that was like the cultural upbringing of my parents. And then my upbringing was heavier on the orthodox side. We went to church every Sunday, family scripture study every day, family prayer. We went to church even on vacation. We would find a local chapel. The only time we didn't go to church on vacation was during COVID. We went on one trip. And let's see.
How many siblings?
I have 3 younger. I'm the oldest.
Okay.
And I'm the oldest grandchild on my mom's side as well.
Okay. So y'all were raised primarily in Oregon?
Yes.
Okay.
I was born in Provo, and at the age of 2, we moved to Oregon.
Okay.
So I grew up there.
All right.
And in Sherwood, specifically where I lived, it was very big LDS. There was like 10% population LDS.
That's a lot.
Yeah. For outside of Utah, yes. So people knew us. Our church building was by our high school. They've since moved high school, so it's different, but we had a church building by the high school, and I did early morning seminary. I was someone who read my scriptures a lot. Even as a young teen, I would journal as I read the scriptures. I was a seminary class president and just very literal Orthodox believer. I was very concerned with doing the right thing. So the For Strength of Youth pamphlet was my guide. And I really was very worried about doing the right thing to the point of like possibly missing out on just some fun as a kid because life was very serious to me. It was the test before you went to the afterlife. So I couldn't mess it up.
I relate. Talk about your 5th grade getting voted.
Oh yeah, I won one superlative my entire life, and it was most likely to be a mom. Which is so funny.
It's ironic.
I didn't know that was one of the things that got voted on. That's new to me.
Yeah, I don't even remember that being an option, but I won it, and I was so proud. I was like, yes, that is what I want to be. And I wouldn't call myself like a very warm and nurturing person to like everyone. I am to the people I really know. So I must have just talked about being a mom all the time in order to get voted for that.
Right.
So it had to have been just something I always knew I was going to be a mom. And that was my highest calling and my purpose. And that's all I wanted.
Growing up, as you kind of witnessed your parents, would you say they were more traditional roles within Mormonism, gender roles?
Yes, they were. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad primarily worked. My mom would occasionally have a part-time job to help supplement income because a 4-kid household is expensive. But yeah, I knew my dad worked, and my mom's job was to be home. She was the one who like shuttled us to and from places, made dinner every night. But I did feel that my parents were equal partners and that my dad did not rule with an iron fist. Like my mom had an equal say in what was going on in our home.
Yeah.
And I never felt that my dad pulled out his priesthood card and said, we're doing it this way because I said so. I never felt that way.
Yeah. And do you remember growing up, just curious, with your mom when she did work, do you remember her being aware of her feelings about that, if she felt okay about it, if she felt remiss about having to work, if it made her less of a mom because she had to, does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
If you had any messages that way.
Her message to us was, we just need some extra money.
Yeah.
And you're at home with dad. Like she would work in the evening. She's like, you're at home with a parent. I love you and I miss you, but we need extra money. So that's what I'm doing.
So
and
practical,
absolutely.
Like a very practical approach.
It was very practical. And she did it when I was older and I like a teenager, and I had no concern about it because I was at school and that's when she was working. So I was like, you can do whatever you want with your time, Mom. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you talk about being proud of being voted most likely to be a mom. What messages did you get from the LDS Church in specifically your high school years about what your purpose and role as a woman would be, a Mormon woman would be?
Absolutely. My role was to get married to a good man and have as many children as I could handle. And that was not only my role, it was my divine design, like ultimate design. And if I did anything that was not that, being a stay-at-home mom, I was shortchanging myself and my family. And my life was to be in service of others and not to develop myself.
Right.
And have wants and needs.
And was the proclamation on the family explicitly a part of your upbringing?
Very much so. It came out a month before I was born, so I've always existed under
95.
Yes. I've always existed under its rule. And it was hung up on the wall in my family home. And it was something that we taught. We had lessons about it within our own family, but also at church. And young women specifically harped on a lot about getting married to a good person, keeping yourself worthy for that man, and being a mom when the time came.
Yeah. Okay. And so your plan, let's just say we stopped you your senior year in high school. What was your plan? The milestones.
Yes. The milestones were go to college and get married before I graduate college. Because if I leave college without a husband, I will not find a good man. And then after I graduated college, I would have children. And after, there's like no end after that. It's just raise children and then be a part of my grandchildren's lives. And that was it. I had no other plans.
Did you ever get into what your eternal destiny would be as a exalted, celestial being who was part of the one true church?
Yeah. I knew that I would be, if I made it to the celestial kingdom, I knew I would be a co-creator of some sort of earth, but I didn't. And I knew that I would help populate that earth. The mechanics of that, not really sure. And I didn't really think about polygamy in the afterlife because I thought it only applied if my husband actually married someone else while on earth. But honestly, because the female experience in the afterlife is not talked about in Mormonism a lot, I didn't give it a lot of thought.
Okay.
I've always been placing myself in the male experience.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yes.
I'm curious, during your kind of teen years, when you're hearing all these messages, were you fully in line? Or was there a part of you? I'm curious if you were kind of merged with the conditioning at this point, or if you were like, oh, that seems hard, or I would really like to, how did you feel about what you were hearing?
I felt aligned with it for the most part. I felt that it made sense and that's what I wanted. I did have 3 months that I dreamed of something different for myself. After I graduated high school, I thought, you know what? I feel like it's pretty young to get married in college. I think I'd like to, graduate college and live on my own and decorate an apartment in this really cute feminine way and have a cat and just kind of be myself before I live in service of others. And I told this to a family member and they said, if you wait to get married, you will not marry a good man. The chances are so slim. So I put it away. And as soon as I got to Utah, that's all I did is I looked for the right man.
I can see some emotions coming up for you. Do you want to talk about that? Do you want to talk about
Absolutely.
that at the end?
No, I'll talk about it. I grieve. I love my life now. I don't want anyone in my family to think that I wish my life were different. But I did give up some things because of Mormonism. I gave up getting to know myself at a younger age. I gave up possibly building a life that's a little different than what I have because I didn't have the ability to make a different choice, I felt.
Yeah.
And having that choice taken away from me is very painful. I've had to mourn it a lot. And I'd say I'm still mourning it. But would I be doing something different now, knowing what I know now? The answer is no, because I've gotten to a point where I think if I wanted to do something different, I would. But I like what I have, so I'm continuing on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So anything else about your pre-college years before we go to college?
No.
Okay. So you were going to go, where'd you go to school?
I went to Utah Valley University in Orem.
Okay.
And loved it.
And so how'd that go?
It went pretty well. I went in first thinking I would be a labor and delivery nurse because I thought it was a flexible career for being a mom, because that was my goal, be a mom. But then I just reflected on what I was actually interested in and decided to take some other classes. And I took an accounting course and thought, this makes sense. I think I'm going to pursue this. And I think I could do accounting part-time after my kids are in school. So I pursued that as my degree, and I met my husband at the end of my second semester of college. And we dated for 8 months. Then we got engaged, and we were engaged.
He was a return missionary.
He was a return missionary.
Okay.
Yes, he served honorably and faithfully in England, and he's just a wonderful, really kind person. That's what drew me to him initially, because we were just friends at first, and then I realized, a really kind friend is the kind of person I want to spend my life with. So then I told him, you can ask me out, and went from there. So, so we were together for 16 months before we actually got married, which is pretty long in Utah. Mm-hmm. Outside of Utah, that's a short amount of time. But in Utah, people were like, that's a really long time. But like, we paid for most of our wedding, so that was part of it. Also just being older. Like, I was 20 and a half when I got married. I really didn't want to be 19 when I got married.
Only on Mormon Stories is 20 and a half older
No.
for getting married.
I know. You're like a child still. So y'all
were so mature.
I know. We just knew exactly what we wanted in life. But it was great. I mean, we had the experiences of like living in a really terrible apartment, and we didn't have a car when we were first married. So we like hauled our groceries. We walked to church over a mile every week because our church building was like a mile away, which is far in Utah. It's usually like 2 or 3 blocks. We were in it, and we decided that finishing college was important before having children. We felt financially and our emotional bandwidth could not handle having kids while in school. So that's how things progressed in college. And I was literal, happy, devout believer, went to church every Sunday, scripture study consistently. Family home evening felt weird with just 2 people, so we didn't do it.
Yeah.
We went to the temple often.
So the temple was a big part of your...
Yes, it was a big part of our relationship. I loved the temple. I want to back up a little bit to the temple specifically, because I decided I wanted to go through the temple like a month after we got engaged. So we were still like 6 months out from getting married. And I had gone through the temple prep class. I had read Boyd K. Packer's book. I felt ready. And I go in for the interview with the stake president, and I can tell that he's thinking about saying no to me. And I was shocked. I had friends who had tried to go through the temple, and they weren't going on a mission, and they weren't engaged, and they were told no. Because a woman, culturally, it was believed at the time, a woman should only go through the temple if she were going on a mission or getting married soon.
Yeah.
And because my wedding was so far out, I could tell he was really not sure about saying yes. And I was enraged. I was like, I'm ready. And my relationship to a man is the reason you want to say no to what I believe will be the spiritual pinnacle of my life. I was so angry, but he eventually said yes, because luckily I had a ring on my finger at the time. And I went through the temple, and it was okay. I thought it was kind of weird in that I thought, wow, this is it. Like, this is the spiritual pinnacle of my life.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I just thought, if I just go more, I'll feel better about it. And I did. I went a lot. So by the time I went to my wedding, I felt very comfortable in the temple. And it was a good day.
Okay.
The wedding.
Yeah.
But you had to go through under the old verbiage, which included the hearkening language. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it sure did. It said, so my husband would hearken to God. And then
in his covenants in the temple. Sorry.
No, please go.
He would, go ahead.
He would hearken to God and covenant to God, whereas I would hearken to my husband and covenant to my husband. But there was this caveat that said, as long as like he hearkens to the will of God. So in my mind, mentally, I thought to myself, well, if he's doing something that I disagree with, it's not the will of God, so I don't have to follow it. That's how I got over that one.
Yeah.
But it was a little surprising, to
Yep.
say the least.
Yeah. I'm curious, as you're describing your relationship together, how would you describe your partnership? Like you mentioned talking about having kids and deciding to wait. And do you want to talk about your partnership and how you made decisions?
Absolutely. It was definitely a partnership, not my husband calling the shots. He did not make the decisions for us. We made them together. I mean, we were so young and also just figuring out life together that we were like, how do we buy a car together? And how do we move together? And just like the daily life, household chores, even just fell on the person who was interested. My husband is a good cook and he likes cooking. I let him cook. And whereas I'm more interested in the cleaning stuff, so I took care of that a bit more. And that's evolved as our life has changed. But it was more about what do we both want? And we would always talk about things together a lot and plan. And we both had equal say.
Yeah.
No one ever was like, well, this is what we're doing.
And what was the purpose of even getting a degree as a Mormon woman at the time? I know that may sound ridiculous to never Mormons, but, not all Mormon women even bother to get degrees. So why were you bothering?
I was bothering because I actually come from a long line of very educated women. I have a picture of I believe a great-great-grandmother who was attending college in the early 1900s on her basketball team. So that's on my mom's side. And my mom's side was very into education. As you know, her parents were converts. So my granny's dad had like an MBA or like a master's or a PhD. Like education was very important to our family.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that a college degree would personally edify me. But I also knew that I needed to be able to work in the event that my husband were disabled or died, or I got divorced. So it was a backup. It was a backup to a worst case scenario.
Got it.
Not like a career or a passion or anything like that.
Nope. I never thought about what do I want to do 40 hours a week for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I never thought about it.
Because you weren't going to be
I wasn't
primary
gonna do it.
breadwinner.
No.
Because the proclamation says what?
Says that men have to provide and preside and that the women nurture.
Yeah. Okay. So what'd you study?
I studied accounting because I could do a little accounting part-time job in the future. And I mean, I'm glad I chose accounting because it works with my nature. I like predictability. I like working with maybe spreadsheets rather than people all the time. And it just naturally fit and made sense. So I'm glad I picked something in that sense. Would I say that I wake up every day just like super excited to do accounting? Probably not. I wouldn't call it an absolute passion, but I feel like watching my current manager, I am learning to love it. She's passionate about accounting, thinks it's very exciting. So I'm catching the vision. But I wouldn't say in college, I was like, accounting is so cool.
Right.
When you tell people you're an accountant, it's like the conversation's over. Usually.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that cool of a career. But I really like it. I think it's a good one.
Yeah.
I think it's a great career and a great degree, but I had to learn that after college.
I think it's interesting that you had this family culture overlay of a degree.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm very thankful for it. Yeah. I always knew that I was going to go to college and finish it. And they did say, try to pick something that can get a job should you need a job.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to ask this because it's not in your outline, but Julie is curious if it was tough to wait 16 months to get married, given kind of law of chastity restrictions and stuff. And you could also say, I don't want to talk about that, or not an issue, whatever you want,
I mean, I wouldn't say, of course, we're human. Of course, there were some concerns, but I would say the main concern was actually just social pressure that people were like, why are you waiting this long? Like, this is weird. I remember telling someone that our wedding was going to be a couple months before it actually was. And I was like, yeah, I don't really know how we're going to pay for it, but I think it's the right thing to do. And they say, that's great. That's what you should be doing. And like, put your trust in the Lord. But then I backed up and said, actually, we need money. So it was more of the social pressure rather than any law of chastity concerns.
Got it. Okay.
I do want to just ask you, because it feels this way to me in the way you're describing it. It feels like you and your husband from the beginning really created like an internal world where you were deciding. Like I kind of love that you're having conversations about, oh, we are going to wait to have kids. That's kind of off path. Mm-hmm. And also being very practical about the wedding, where it's like, well, we don't have the money to pay for it, so we need to wait, as opposed to like there's some internal where you're connecting internal as a couple there that is allowing you to differentiate from this social pressure that you described.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't think I had ever really put it together like that, but I completely agree. We definitely were making decisions as a couple without regard to a lot of other people's opinions, which was very special and felt like we were in control of our life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really something.
That is something I look back on with good memories and happy feelings for sure.
Love it. So, how did kind of school wind down and career wind up for I guess at first your husband, but then maybe both of you?
Yeah, so I actually started college before my husband. So he was a little bit behind in the college path. So I graduated before him, probably a year or so before he did. So I actually started a career because I wanted to support him while he was going to school. So I got my first accounting job, like real staff accountant job here in American Fork. And I really enjoyed it. And it was like the first time I really was like, oh, this is what an accounting job is like. And he went to school. He had a little more trouble with studying and schoolwork than I did. It didn't come as naturally to him. So he did better if he was doing school full time and not working. And I started working and providing for us completely in about, I'd say 2018. So that was only like 2 years into our marriage. I started being the main breadwinner.
What was he studying?
He studied to be a history teacher for like middle school and high school.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it's definitely naturally suited for him. And he did a really good job when he was doing that.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're on the track.
I'm on the track.
Supporting your husband is a very Mormon thing while he finishes his education and gets his career. Many do that without bothering to get their own education first.
That's true.
But I'm liking that, my Mormon brain is liking that you're still on the train.
I know. I haven't
Slightly
deviated.
unorthodox, but mostly very orthodox.
Yes, I haven't deviated too much at this point.
Okay.
So as my husband got close to the end of his college career, we knew when he was going to be done. We just said, all right, well, it is time to have children. And we got pregnant easily. And I gave birth like 3 weeks before he was done student teaching. And before I gave birth, 6 weeks before I had my first child, I was offered a promotion at work. And that promotion meant that I would be making a lot more money than he would as a first year teacher. And at first, my job before that, the salaries were comparable. So I felt like whatever slight step down we were taking, I was like, we're fine. But then when I got the promotion and saw how much more it was, I thought, wow, I don't know if we can pass this up. And then when you're a teacher, they have salary schedules on their district websites. So you can see how much money that they're going to make until the end of their career.
Starts at like $32K,
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
At my husband's time, it started at like 38 or 40, and he would top out at 80.
After 30 years.
Yes, your entire career,
Yeah.
you're topping out at 80. which at the time felt like a decent amount of money because I was making closer to the 50 mark. But when the promotion came, and then I started looking at accounting jobs, and I was like, how much do accountants make? And it kind of blew teaching out of the water. And I thought, this doesn't make sense for us to pursue my husband's career. And I said that to him, and he said, I would love to be at home with our child.
Wow.
Because teaching is so hard, especially the first 5 years. It's very challenging as you're developing your curriculum. You're basically working lots of overtime, figuring out your curriculum, and you're just like, it's bone-breakingly difficult.
Yeah.
And when he had gone through it. He saw
It can be soul-crushing.
It was.
For some.
It can be.
Not everyone. Depends on the personality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was for my husband a bit. So when he's now in it, because he did not just student teach. He did the internship program where he was a full-time teacher at half pay. And so he knew what it was like to be a teacher. And when he saw the opportunity to stay home with our child, he said, I want to do this. And I knew logically, this makes sense. I'm going to make more money. We're going to live a comfortable life. And my husband wants to be home with our child. So we're still doing the right thing. Someone's going to be home with our kid. It's going to be a parent who loves them, but it's not going to be me. So practically, I knew it was right. But at this point, I probably wept like every day.
Yeah.
I was devastated.
Why?
Yeah.
Because I lost my dream. I lost what I planned for. My whole point was to be a mom.
But you were, okay, this isn't me challenging you. It's me being curious, but you were choosing it.
I was choosing it.
So how could you cry over it? And I don't mean this is a loaded question. How can you cry over a choice you're choosing?
This is a great question. I knew in my head it was the right choice, but in my heart, I could not get my head and heart to align.
Yeah.
Because it was all I had dreamed of. It was all I had planned on. And I was this close to reaching out and getting it. And it wasn't to be for very practical reasons. It made sense. It made sense for me to work, but my heart was so hurt at not being home with my baby every day.
Yes, that totally makes sense to me. I have a question with regard to your experience of work.
Okay.
Like, did you enjoy your job?
I enjoyed my job. Yes, I thought it was a good job. And I thought I was good at it. And I liked making money. I liked having my work valued monetarily. And I liked having people tell me I did a good job. And I enjoyed working.
You enjoyed working.
Yes. I never went to work thinking, I just can't wait until I can be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
It was just part of the plan to be a stay-at-home mom, but I did enjoy working at that time.
Yeah. And what about like personal meaning and fulfillment? And aside from job satisfaction, you know what I mean? Like life, purpose, meaning kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think I could confidently say I didn't think my purpose on the planet was to be an accountant, but I felt that it fulfilled the purpose of providing a good life and giving my husband and I the things we wanted to do and, putting a roof over our head. Like it was a practical decision. And I felt naturally suited to it.
Yeah.
So that's how it fit for me.
And there's a class, there's a type of, let's just say brain, and I'm going to say a woman's brain, although I think this could apply to men too. There's a type of woman's brain that doesn't enjoy parenting and who, if they are a mom, are actually a better mom when they work full time. Does any of that apply to you? Either I didn't really love being a stay-at-home parent, or I will be a way better parent if I'm working full time. Either of those apply to you.
I would say it applies to me now, and I feel like I can say that. But when I was on the cusp of giving birth, I did not understand those women, nor did I relate with them. I thought, if you're a mom, you should be home. And I don't understand how you could enjoy working. It was very foreign to me over being with your children. At this point, I do believe I'm a better mom because I work. And I do believe it's way more challenging to be the stay-at-home parent because I'm watching my husband do it, and it's very hard.
Yeah. I mean, this makes sense to me why it's hitting you so hard, because I do feel like, having gone through the Young Women's program, it's like a crisis of a dream identity.
Oh, absolutely.
But that dream identity is current. It's not just the future. It is part of your current identity even though you're not a mom yet, even though you haven't lived the reality yet. So what I'm hearing from you is kind of that you have a crisis through circumstance.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I had a full-blown identity crisis when I went back to work after having my first child. It was just, I couldn't let go of what I had lost, and I didn't know how to operate in the world as a working mother. I couldn't let go of how I thought things should be done at home. I couldn't let go of how I would spend my time, what I'm missing out on, like mommy play dates with friends. Like that's not going to happen as often because I'm at work during the work week.
Yes.
Or just like taking my kid out for a walk during the day. Like I'm not going to have the type of life where at 10 a.m. I get the stroller out and go for a walk. I'm sitting at a desk instead. And that was really hard to give up.
Yeah.
And I will say that it did impact my marriage because I'm seeing my husband, who hasn't planned to be a stay-at-home dad, who hasn't like planned his whole life to do it. So he doesn't have these certain ideas. And then he's also just a different person. Like the way he operates in our household is different than how I do. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing the way he does things, and I'm like, I would just do it differently. And maybe you're unhappy because you're doing it differently. And which is like so awful to say. And I've apologized to him a lot about this.
Yeah.
But it was really hard to watch him do it and struggle, and for me to go to work and struggle not being home. Like
That's
it
right.
was soul crushing, an identity crisis completely.
For him,
Both
or for
of us.
you, or for both?
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I'm feeling so deeply for you both, is you both are kind of having a juxtapositional experience, but similar.
Absolutely.
Where the life you planned for years and years and years, and the identity that you built and were conditioned to build, you're now in a place where, if Mormonism is about anything, I mean, a huge part of Mormonism, I think, is about the plan.
Yeah.
And now you're completely out. You envisioned all these moments as a mom before you did not envision this life with a career and at work all day, especially having a child at home, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He went through the whole, how do I find value in myself when I'm not making money? Because he was taught his value was in making money.
Yes.
And I thought, how do I find value in myself when I'm not at home with a child that I brought into the world? And my whole eternal design was to be that mom at home. So finding value in ourselves was really challenging. And then also just figuring out how to make the day-to-day work. Like we just didn't, even though in our earlier marriage, we had always like done what each other naturally wanted to do, it now felt like such a role reversal that we had to have lots of conversations and kind of like negotiate and say, what are we going to do to make this work for both of us? And it involved a lot of flexibility on my part because I'm not a naturally really flexible person. For instance, I was the type of person who needed the house clean before I could relax. And then I had a child and thought, if that's the case, I will never relax again because the house will always be dirty.
Right.
So I had to let it go. And then it just became learning flexibility of letting my husband go on his own journey and figure out how he wanted to do things and let him do it and just support him in it and not be the problem solver for him. Because being the problem solver creates lots of friction.
Let me ask, I'm going to try something experimental. I'm going to play the conditioned Mormon brain talking to you, your late 20-something self, as you're trying to decide whether to kind of get off the Mormon train, the orthodox Mormon train, and take this different path of you providing and your husband staying home to, quote, nurture the kids. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
And you just respond maybe how you would have responded at the time.
Okay.
Okay. So don't do it, Cate. It's violating the proclamation. The proclamation's doctrine. No success can compensate for failure in the home. It doesn't matter if you can go on vacations or even have a mortgage. It's better that you obey the commandments and follow the proclamation than want any material things for your family.
Agreed. However, I would like to not live in an apartment for the rest of my life. And that's really what it came down to, is I want to comfortably live. And that's all.
But Cate, your husband can go back to school and maybe you can, struggle, but you can work just a couple more years till he goes back to school and gets a graduate degree and something else. And then he can find a better career. Maybe he can join an MLM and sell doTERRA, but there's got to be a way where he can become a provider outside of being a school teacher without you having to violate the family proclamation.
That is totally true.
Sorry.
No, it's totally fine. I mean, I hadn't even thought about that, but I don't want more debt, and and my husband doesn't know what he wants to do. So we're stuck here. This is our reality. And the reality is I will make more money right now.
And he wanted to be a stay-at-home dad?
Yes. If he was going to have to teach or be a stay-at-home parent, he wanted to be a stay-at-home parent.
I mean, that's compelling.
Yes. That's how difficult teaching was for him. It was very difficult. He loved it, but it was very hard.
The reality is, in 2025, so many young couples both have to work.
Yes.
So, I mean, there's the ideal and the doctrine and the teachings for the past 100 years. And then there's a lived reality where if anybody wants a home in 2025, one income's, unless you're like Wall Street sort of level income, you're not going to be able to do it on one income as a Mormon couple in 2025, I think.
Yeah.
That's what I hear.
I think it's very true.
Yeah.
And from what I can tell, it seems very true. And I guess if we were to go back to that experiment, I would say, but at least one of us is at home with our child. Like, at least we're both doing something. One of us is with the child and one's working rather than both working. Like, any sacrifice to just have one parent at home was worth it. So at least we're getting that part right.
That's a good point. Like, yes, the single income can work, but it's got to be a premium job. And you had one, and they're not easy to come by.
No.
That's not a trivial thing you just turn on and off. Oh, you had a premium job career. Now he needs to get one. Like, that wasn't in the cards.
No.
Yeah. And I feel like when I remember back to having a child, like I remember, I don't know if it's just sort of evolutionarily like wiring, but I remember wanting financial stability. Like there was something about that, having a little human where you were like, we got to get it together. We've got to. And so to me, I remember when we had our first child, same. Like it was like, how do we get we need to really be serious about finances. We were in an apartment. After we had our firstborn, moved out of the apartment really quickly into a townhome. But it kind of like, I feel like it became very clear in that moment. So I am not surprised at all how clear it became and how financial stability became something that was like a value in that moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always valued financial stability, but as soon as my first child showed up, I was like, it actually doesn't matter what I want. Like it doesn't. We need financial stability, and the route of me working will lead to it.
Yeah.
So
talk about what it was like to the extent that you're able for your husband to be raised where his confidence would be as the breadwinner and as, quote, protecting and providing. And now he's Mr. Mom and you're off at work and he's dealing with his sense of security or self-confidence, knowing now that he's not living the gospel as it's been outlined, and he's been relegated. Let's face it, he's been relegated to second-class status, which is the class of a woman in modern America, which is, I hate to say it, it's kind of a second-class status, especially in Mormonism.
Yes, he felt it. He felt it very strongly. He did feel like a failure. He felt terrible for disappointing me. He saw how sad I was to give up the dream of being a stay-at-home mom. So he dealt with the full spectrum of emotion. And I'm sure there was a bit of embarrassment as well. And he just started to feel very isolated because at church, he didn't fit in now. When people asked him what he did, he'd say, I'm a stay-at-home dad. And it kind of depended on the age range of who he was speaking to. If they were closer to our age, they're like, oh, that's cool. I would love to do that. We had one man in our ward say that, and we were friends with them. And then if they were like 60 plus, sometimes they would just look at us and then stop talking. Like they just didn't know how to react. So we were very isolated and othered. And Trevor, I don't know if he ever said it, but I think he was like, I don't think I'm ever going to be like an elders quorum president or bishop. Like those people have to make money usually. Like, I think I'm never going to have those callings. He was like, thank goodness, because he didn't want to be one of those. But yeah. And then also like mom groups aren't super interested in having like a single dad join.
Interesting. Yes.
And sometimes when my husband would show up at the park with us.
You don't mean a single dad.
Sorry. Like they don't want a dad.
A man.
A man coming.
Joining a mom group.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're like, that's weird.
Yeah.
And sometimes even when my husband would show up at the park and it's all these moms and their kids, they would literally leave because they were uncomfortable with a man there with their child, which, you know what, they do what they need to do for how they feel safe.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, I really don't fit the mold. People don't want to be around me. And I'm dealing with the emotions of not fulfilling what I always thought I would do. And I've disappointed my spouse. Like, it was pretty intense.
Yeah, that's heavy.
Just for the Never Mormons who don't have the context, if you're, let's just say in 2025, if you're 45 or older, you would have been raised in a church where the prophet of the church gave a speech saying the woman's place is in the home and women should not work and children will suffer if the woman works and men need to be the providers and full stop.
Yeah.
No hesitation, no stuttering. The woman's place is in the home. And that's, that speech was given while I was at BYU to all the church worldwide. So those 40, 50, 60 something people, they're looking at you like that because they're literally interpreting your decisions as disobeying God's prophet.
Yes.
Full stop. Right?
No question.
Yeah.
No question. However, I will say our family was really kind about it. Like my parents were like, duh, that makes sense. Like we're totally supportive. Even my grandparents who are in the older age range. And I was pretty firm with them. I'm like, this is what we're doing. I didn't let them tell me they disagreed, but they've been really good about not disagreeing or telling us that we're making the wrong decision. Everyone
That's fortunate. Yeah.
I wonder if part of that's not being pioneer stock. You know what I mean?
Potentially. Yeah. I'm speaking specifically about my mom's parents who were like, that sounds great. Go ahead.
Yeah.
But my dad's parents, they were also supportive, even though they're pioneer stock, like raised on the farm situation.
Yeah.
They said things like, well, at least one of you is at home. That's what someone always said.
Okay.
At least one of you is at home.
That's flexible.
I think this is interesting though, especially around all the pain and the suffering that you're feeling in this moment. Because without this Mormon lens, I think there's also a cultural lens. I think it's getting better, but like there is a cultural aspect to this too. But it's like, it's all made up.
Yes.
It is literally all made up. Mm-hmm. So like the fact that you're enjoying your job, you're fortunate enough to have at this moment particularly too, an ample raise that will make it so you can live comfortably, get out of the apartment. You have a spouse who's like, hey, you know what? I think I'd love to be home with our child and parent our child while you do that. This is like, without all the outside,
the Mormon
this
baggage,
is like
basically.
Amazing.
Yeah.
In any other context, it would be like, thank you for, and particularly, I mean, even more so if your husband, without all this judgment that he comes with of other people, felt like particularly like he would be a good stay-at-home dad. Like, I feel like characteristically my personality, I might be more nurturing and would really enjoy this time with our child. And you're like, beautiful. Take it. And you know what? I'm feeling the job right now. So I'll go ahead and do that. But it's just interesting how much of the suffering is based on this lens around, oh no, it's got to be this way, you know?
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And that crystallized for me one day as I was just switching the laundry over. And I thought to myself, I am mentally suffering because of this belief in the proclamation. And if I just don't believe in the proclamation, I will feel better.
You'll be free.
Yeah, I will be free. Because at this point, I had gone through a couple rounds of therapy. I had finally figured out acceptance and commitment therapy and how much my thoughts impact my life. And if I just think about it in a different way, I will feel a different way. And therefore, life will be better. Like, I can have a thought and hold it loosely and let it go, or I can keep it. And the thought that the family proclamation was true, I was like, this one is making me suffer. I am going to let it go. Yeah. And I let it go.
We jumped ahead of ourselves in the story, but it's good. Let's jump back just a tiny bit. I was just going to say, I'm reminded of the Jubilee episode I did where a Mormon apologist told a lesbian woman, you know, I've got a burden. My burden is, you know, you're gay, and my burden is I've got cancer. And the lesbian woman said, being lesbian is not a burden. Like, being lesbian is awesome. The only thing that's a burden is being Mormon and being a lesbian, right? Yes. I'm reminded of that. The only thing that's wrong with being a working mom and having a stay-at-home dad is it's being Mormon in that context, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, one quick question before we move about the kind of the crisis point and the unraveling, which we've touched on. Julia wanted to know if your children, how many children do y'all have right now?
We have 2.
Okay. Julia wanted to know if your children suffered at all not having you home. And a further clarifying question, did the kids suffer like going against the proclamation or even going to church and having other kids ask questions or in any way feeling a shame or a stigma that your family wasn't conforming to the norm?
So my children did not suffer. They were happy, healthy, and they knew me and loved me, and it felt good. They never felt any sort of shame because of the family proclamation at church, because my son was just under 2 when we stopped attending, so he wasn't able to. He was too young.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, at the point where I'm going to work for the first time with a young child, I felt a very emotional about even just nursing. I felt that my child wouldn't know and love me if I didn't nurse them. Mm. And so because I was working, I had to use a breast pump, and it was easier for me to just exclusively pump rather than like mix. So I was really nervous my kid wouldn't love me, but I found that my child still knew who I was and loved me and was excited to see me every day. And I felt like everyone was thriving. So did that further the crisis a little bit? If your lived experience now too is, wait, now not only are we in this situation where we're not living the family proclamation, but now we're not, and it's going well. Yes. Yeah. I was thinking, wow, one path for all, like not real. It doesn't need to be that way. Yeah. Yeah. We were all just doing fine. And so my kids did not suffer. My husband is a great stay-at-home dad. I'd say he's like more fun than I am. He plans cool activities. They have a really good time together. He
Wow.
definitely, he prioritizes different things because he's a different person and they're having a great time.
I mean, that's a really important thing to bring out, I think, as far as a weakness goes in the Family Proclamation. It assumes that parenting traits and professional traits align cleanly with gender, with assigned gender.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, there are moms that are great at playing with their kids, and there are dads that are great at playing with their kids. And sometimes it's not the same. And sometimes there are dads that have the personalities to do well in the workplace. And sometimes it's moms that have the personality traits to do well in the workplace. And those things aren't distributed by gender either. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to force someone who's not good with kids to be the mom and the stay-at-home mom, or a dad who's just not cut out for the workforce, and to jam them into providing, why? It's just creating stress and havoc. Go with it's kind of like supply and demand and basic economics 101. You go with the distribution, with the specialty. You go with the specialty and the proper distribution of skills and talents, and you get the most productive, healthy outcome. Right?
Absolutely.
I think.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it's going to be different for each couple.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My husband, he was in some ways much more naturally nurturing than me. Like at night when it's bedtime, I don't want to deal with the kids. He is much more willing to get up and comfort a child in the middle of the night rather than I am, which feels like not aligned with the Family Proclamation with nurturing. That's supposed to be my specialty, whereas it's actually more his. So yeah, let's go with our strengths here.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes all the sense in the world. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you're married what year?
2016.
Okay. So that's just 9 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And you're on the orthodox train for how many years?
5 years.
So we're at 2021 now.
Yep.
COVID has happened before the wheels start coming off the wagon.
Yeah. So my first child was born in 2021, which with the identity crisis definitely spurned the wheels coming off.
This is just 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Only 4 years ago.
Yeah. So how does it happen?
Well, I'll say that because the identity crisis was so all-encompassing, I did do therapy, which is where I got into acceptance and commitment therapy. You went to you were feeling depression, is that right? Absolutely. I was feeling very hopeless, like I was doing the wrong thing in my heart, but in my mind I knew it was the right thing.
Oh, it's so hard.
Luckily I had a really good therapist. He was even Mormon, and he was like, "You are a mom. Whether you go to work or not, you are a mom." Mm-hmm. And that is great. And your kid's going to love you and you're going to be fine. So that was really great. And then I go off to work. We ended up moving to Oregon for an even better job than the one I was offered before I gave birth. And that job, I'm still at it. I absolutely love it. And just as things progressed and we were doing fine, like things were good, I learned these skills in acceptance and commitment therapy to not hold my thoughts so tightly, to feel my feelings so they could wash over me and be gone. And in that book, it also talks about values. And it said, I did a workbook is what I'm referencing. I don't remember what it's called, but I did a workbook and it talked about values, and it said values are not from an external authority like a religion. And I remember being like, ooh.
What?
Oh,
They aren't?
interesting. I thought the value was like, love God.
Obey the prophets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Be obedient, be what Mormonism tells you to be. Yeah. I thought those were my values. So when I read that, I thought, ooh, I don't know
about this therapy.
I just thought to myself, if it's not from religion, then what are my values? Like I didn't know.
Yeah.
Which was a little like destabilizing.
But weirdly, going back to that moment in high school where you're like, I think I want to live on my own and have a cat And you know,
Decorate my own space.
Mm-hmm.
that was your emerging self that you had to put back in the box.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So and what came to me is, wow, this therapy is giving me skills to cope with life. And I have more skills and I'm doing better because of this therapy than because I'm reading my scriptures or praying or going to church, because my level of worship and belief has stayed the same, but my mental health has tanked and come back up because of this therapy.
Right.
So what is the church offering me at this point? It was my next thought. If I'm getting skills elsewhere, what's the point of going to church? And then I'm thinking, okay, well, I believe in it. Like, it's a good way to live. But then I just became suspicious. So I just stopped reading the Book of Mormon. I was like, I'm not going to read what the church is telling me to read. I'm more interested in what Jesus has to say. So I read the New Testament and I would be like, what did Jesus say about tithing? He doesn't really say much, does he? Render unto Caesar what's Caesar's and render unto God what is God's. And I'm like, well, he's not saying I need to do 10%. Like, why is the church asking for 10%? And then I just became interested in deconstruction in general because I was on TikTok at this point. But it wasn't Mormonism deconstruction, because why would anyone deconstruct Mormonism? It was like ex-evangelicals or people like the Duggars. The one that really piqued my interest was Christine Brown from Sister Wives. Mm-hmm. I watched the show and she went through a divorce, but then after the divorce, she's really started talking about her faith journey a little bit. And I listened to a podcast where she talked about it, and she didn't want to get into the doctrine, but she said, I didn't like the culture of fear. And I thought, I feel a culture of fear in my church. Right. Also, her church and my church have the same founder. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, duh, she deconstructed, because that's not true. Like, very arrogant of me to think that. But it did bother me that it was the same founder. And in fact, I had watched Sister Wives over the years, and sometimes I'd have to stop because they would do and say things about mainstream Mormonism that made me uncomfortable. Mm. But yeah, I just became interested in deconstruction, and they talked about how their lives became so much lighter and freer because they no longer were bound by these beliefs that didn't serve them. So then I just naturally thought to myself, does believing and living Mormonism lead me to my best life? Because I already know believing the proclamation caused me a lot of pain. Right. So I consciously stopped believing it long before I started having these questions because it was so painful. So I'm asking, is it leading to my best life? And I've followed this well-known LDS coach, and she was like, there's this book called Fowler's Stages of Faith. And I thought, interesting. So I picked it up. And so she was LDS, and she talked a lot about how she coached a lot of women. And she was just like, we need to stop being so upset that people leave the church. Like, they're just not attending, and your thoughts about it are what's making you suffer, not that they're not going to church. So let's just let it go a little bit. And people go through faith journeys. Here's this book. So I tried reading that book. For me, it was a bit of a dense read. Like, it was a little challenging. Mm-hmm. But I did get to the part where I was like, okay, I see that I've been in level 3, stage 3 orthodox believer for my whole life. But I feel like I'm entering 4, where I'm having questions. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to emerge out of 4 with a stronger belief. I'm going to understand this and I'm going to make it work. And then my parents started having some questions, and they would say things. And this is when I learned that a family member of mine didn't want to serve a mission, and he was male. And my parents were like, it's fine. You don't have to serve, do what you want. And I was like, this is weird. But also, for a long time, I had been thinking, why do we serve missions? The internet exists. Anyone who wants to know about Mormonism can just go to our webpage. Why are we putting people out here to proselytize? I think it's a waste of time. That's what I thought as a believer at that point. So there's these questions coming up. My parents are questioning. And then just to give some context, throughout the years, my husband would drop these little nuggets of disbelief because he struggled with the church for various reasons. And he would just, and he studied Utah history because he became a history teacher in Utah. And he said, did you know that there is a lot of Freemasonry in the temple ritual? And I was like, that's weird. Maybe we just needed something to go off of. That's how I just made sense of that one.
Right.
Or he said, did you know that in the 1850s, Brigham Young had everyone get baptized again? And I was like, what? What are you talking about? Like, that's weird. He's like, yeah, they did. And I was like, okay, I'm not reading into that because that makes me very uncomfortable. And then my husband would come to me and say, going to church is very painful for me. I don't feel like I fit in. And this is before we had kids, before we really deviated.
Okay, so this is early on.
Early. He was like, are you still going to love me if I don't go to church? And I hate to say that I was not very charitable. I said, I don't know how I'm going to function in a mixed faith marriage. I didn't say those words. I wish I had, but I was basically like, I don't know how to do that. And so he would just button it up and not talk to me about it. But every once in a while, he would say, it's very painful for me to go to church, just even for simple like personality reasons. Like my husband is not an extrovert. He's an introvert. And the church really values extroverts and is like, wow, you're a great member missionary. You're good at volunteering for everything. My husband didn't enjoy passing the sacraments because he didn't like people watching him. And when he'd say no, he felt a lot of shame because saying no to passing usually signals you're doing something wrong. But that wasn't it. And he just didn't like doing it. So I knew that my husband had questions, and now I'm watching my parents actively question. And those are the three people I trust the most. And they are questioning what is going on. And at this point, I had my first child. So I was deep. I had that identity crisis. So it was just...
Wow, that's a lot.
A perfect storm of the people I trust having questions and knowing that I wasn't going to lose my relationship with them if I had questions. I was safe to question, which is a privilege that many people don't get.
I was going to say, this is such an important story right now. One of the reasons we invited you, we know in 2025 that in the pews in the LDS Church in 2025, for the first time ever, there's more men in the pews than women. And, you know, that theoretically wouldn't be a big deal, except that it's historically unheard of. Historically in the U.S., women have always outnumbered the men. So what it means is within the LDS Church in 2025 and in the past few years, young women are leaving the church at a much higher rate than young men are.
Yes.
And your story shows why. And I think there are a couple components that play into it. What I'm hearing so far is, one, in terms of the proclamation on the family and, you know, the need to be a working mom, that makes you start having thoughts, gives you a sense of confidence and of freedom, potential liberation, along with a lot of questions that a stay-at-home Mormon mom wouldn't be able to have. And then secondly, your husband's having doubts and questions, also because he's experiencing the dissonance of not being on the orthodox train, as are you. So there's that. But then oftentimes it's the binding force of a spouse who will leave you, a woman feeling disempowered and weak and vulnerable because she doesn't have a degree or an education, and then parents who are going to be like, turn it off, doubt your doubts, shut that down. But because there are more and more parents and grandparents questioning and or leaving the church, you've got this, like you said, privilege, but also a sense of courage and inquisitiveness, and a therapist, a good therapist who's giving you solid therapeutic advice, versus historically the Mormon church might warn you against a therapist, or a Mormon bishop might steer you only to a therapist that's going to say, a church-approved therapist that's going to say, pray, read your scriptures, follow the prophet. Like, there's all sorts of pillars that would have kept a woman in that in 2025 weren't keeping you chained to a life that was going to lead to depression and misery and sadness for you and your family.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
And is there more? Did I miss stuff?
No, you've covered it. I even want to say that maybe 3 months before the questioning really started, I did another round of therapy because of just the sadness I was feeling at my life path and believing in the church. And I went to a therapist that my bishop recommended, and she ended up being amazing. And we'll get to why, because a lot of my therapy was about my husband doesn't believe, and it's really hard for me that he doesn't believe. And she said, well, who has more freedom? The person who goes to church because their wife makes them, or the person who doesn't go to church? And do we believe in agency? And I said, the person who doesn't go to church has more agency and freedom. And I thought, my husband deserves the right to not go to church. So when I finished that round of therapy, I told him, I said, you don't have to go to church anymore. I know that it's very painful for you, and it's not right for me to make you go. He still went because he was a little skeptical that I really meant it. But I was open to it at that point.
Right.
I said, you can stop because I know it's not working for you. And she helped me see that. Even as a believing therapist herself, she told me, she basically helped me get to the conclusion of, you need to let your husband decide what he's going to do. So I'm in this it felt like chaos, this questioning. It felt like a runaway train. I couldn't stop. And
Stop what?
I couldn't stop thinking that there's something wrong with this church and it's not good. So I need to look. And what I was most concerned about was harmfulness. I decided to find some faithful podcasts that touched on LGBTQ issues in the church and racism in the past, because those were the things that I was most embarrassed about with being a member. When I eventually got to the point where I actually didn't want people to know I was a member, because I didn't want them to say like, oh, so you don't like gay people, or, oh, you come from a racist church. I was mortified, and I didn't want them to know, and I didn't want to talk about it. So I went and I looked, and I found that members of the LGBTQ community had higher rates of suicide in our church, and that it was just wrong to ask them to live a life of celibacy without a life partner. And I thought to myself, what if my child is gay? And I don't find out until he's like 15, and we're 15 years into that messaging. And then like, this is harmful for my children potentially. And I don't know if I can let them sit in a pew and hear this, because I know what it's like to go to church and take the church's word for it over my parents, because my parents always said, we will love you no matter what you do. And I believe my parents, but I also thought, there are rules here. You need to follow those rules for God to love you. And I think you're going to be disappointed if I do something wrong. And I didn't want anything to come between me and my child, and to have my child believe the church more than me. And then I listened to an apologetic podcast about the racist ban on Black members. And at the end of the podcast, they're like, yeah, so Brigham Young was just racist, and that's why it happened. It wasn't divine. And I thought to myself, then why do we have prophets if they're not divinely inspired? There's no reason to follow them at that point. If they are just men and their policies affect people's lives in very big and painful ways, why in the world do we follow them? So I just stopped believing in prophets at that point. I was like, they're not divinely inspired. Maybe they have good things to teach though, like they're correcting. So maybe we can still listen to them a little bit. And then the final straw was I have a weekly meeting with the CEO at my medical clinic that I work at. And he knows I'm Mormon. In fact, he's the one who hired me. And a big part of the reason I got hired, because I was out of state and they weren't really interested in someone out of state. They thought I wanted to be remote, and I had to write and say, I plan to relocate. I'm going to be here. And I really value integrity because I'm an accountant, and I don't think accounting is particularly challenging once you get the basics, but all you have after that is your integrity. Because if you cannot be trusted, you should not be an accountant, because you have access to lots of information and tools that, if used incorrectly, cause a lot of harm.
Right.
So I was like, I believe in being honest, and it is a high core value of mine, and I will never be dishonest in this job. And he knew I was Mormon, and I sit down in our weekly meeting, and right out the gate, he says, 38 billion. 38 billion.
Oh.
And
what's he talking about?
He is talking about the news article that broke about the church's fraudulent tax filings. And one of the funds had $38 billion in it. And he was just astonished at how much money our church had accumulated.
Yeah.
He was like, the Catholic Church has been around for longer and doesn't have, like, the funds are comparable, or they don't have as much money. So he was like amazed at how much money we had. And then he was like, and they're committing fraud. And I was like, I'm not plugged into the news. I was totally shocked. I was like, what are you talking about? And he said they've been caught and fined for fraudulently filing tax forms with shell companies.
Yeah.
Accounting is not super interesting. So your fraud classes stand out. Shell companies are never used for anything good. It was pretty clear to me that it was fraud the moment he said that. And I couldn't put on my believing brain and reason it away. I was like, this is fraud. And my managers, I'm sitting there with my direct manager and the CEO, and they're laughing and pointing jokes and making jokes about how they're not going to commit fraud like the Mormon church, and ha, ha, ha. And I was mortified because I'm a Mormon. I am so clearly defined by Mormonism, and my leaders are liars and fraudsters. How can I follow them when they are so clearly doing the wrong thing? And at that point, I thought to myself, there is no way this is divinely inspired. And there is no way I can continue to give my money to this organization, give my life to it, or give my children to it. So that was in the final week of February when I learned that. We went to church one more time, and then I knew we weren't going back to church. And the irony is that Sunday, we listened to a talk about millennials losing their faith. And I thought, yep, I'm a millennial, and this is the end. I'm not coming back.
Wow. Dang. I mean, I have noticed that Mormon or LDS accountants and investors, so SEC stuff and IRS stuff, they took a hit when the Ensign Peak news came out, because you know, if you want to be an investor or an accountant, you follow the SEC or the IRS guidelines. You know them,
Yep.
and you follow them.
Yes.
So to find out the church, God's church, Christ's church, God's prophets are literally in violation of tax law and securities law, I don't know how you stay without viewing your church as a fraud, you know?
You can't.
Like literally, like that word, I mean, there's believers that are like, don't use the word fraud, that's too offensive. But from a tax, I mean, you're an IRS, I mean, you're an accountant, right?
It is the term to describe the situation.
Does it describe what the Mormon church has done with Ensign Peak, in your opinion?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
In fact, the first thing that came to mind was a reference to a TV show where the accountant is like, and another good term is fraud. That's it. It was fraud.
Yeah.
It was devastating. So my father is also an accountant. And just to back up like 8 weeks, my mom told my dad, I don't believe in the church. I don't believe it. I don't want to go. I don't think it's real and true. And my dad was like, oh, I think I can make this work. Let me do this what I can, but you can do what you want. And then the SEC thing happened and he was like, oh my gosh, it's not real either. Because to help my mom, he was like, I'll read these gospel topics essays. And then he read the SEC like letter that the church put out saying, like trying to make it sound nice. And he's like, this sounds a lot like a gospel topics essay where they're not really being honest.
Yeah.
So my dad and mom were done too by that point.
Okay. So was that before you made the decision to be done? So and were you all communicating during this time where in real time you kind of had the sense of, oh, they may be done?
Yes. So I knew that my mom had questions and we were talking about it.
Okay.
And she knew I had questions. And my dad knew my mom had questions, but wasn't quite done yet. And we would go to family dinner every week. My mom's family is very close geographically. So I'm going to family dinner and I'm like, Mom, I'm worried. This is not working. This is causing me a lot of problems. And eventually my mom just looked at me and said, we don't believe. We go, but we don't believe anymore. And I thought, how do you do that? And she's like, well, this is just what we're doing right now. And then my dad even at one point was like, you need to be careful. It's to my mom. Like, you need to be careful with Cate because she's having a really hard time. And I don't want you to talk her out of it. Like, let her make her own decision.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just saw, wow, she's really going down too. And we all just were done very similarly at the same time.
Wow. That's really something.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. The more parents that leave, the more kids will leave. And the more kids that leave, the more parents will leave. It can become a real downward spiral for church activity in the U.S., which is what's happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for any family who's thinking like, why didn't we talk to them? Like believing wise, like you kind of feel like you have a disease that you don't want to spread it. And so I didn't talk to my parents really openly about my questions until I really started to have questions. And then I was really nervous too, because I thought, what if I say something that takes them off the path and they're feeling this much mental anguish, just like me, like I want to protect them. So you can keep it quiet for a really long time because like for survival, basically. But then eventually it became too painful that we spoke about it. But by the time we talked, it was over.
So Julie asked me to ask if sharing nuggets of disbelief is helpful to believing family. And this is something I'll pivot and add a bit to the question too. Like when someone comes to me angry and they've lost their faith and they want to be a missionary for ex-Mormonism to all their believing family and friends, my general advice is not to do that. And you're shaking your head no.
Yeah, I agree.
Why?
No, I agree with you. Don't do it.
And yet, you're also saying that hearing that your parents and husband were struggling ended up helping you. So help me work through that, because you could argue that it was them sharing with you that they had doubts and questions that then gave you a sense of freedom and security to also doubt and question at some point.
Yeah. So let's go through that. When my husband early in our marriage would say like, hey, this thing about church bothers me, Brigham Young rebaptized people, I would just, no, we're not talking about it. But when he would come to me and say, the church is really painful for me, it's really hard for me to go to church, I feel bad, that was harder for me to dismiss, because I was like, well, who cares what happened in the past? But when I'm looking at my spouse and they're saying, this is really painful for me, that got into my heart more than whatever he said about historical things.
Or a historical, yep.
Yes, his pain got in, and that is what got into my heart and head to at least let me feel like if I question, he's going to be okay, because I already know he's in pain with this church. With my parents, I was already pretty far down the questioning train, that I felt relieved when they came out as unbelievers to me, because I knew I wouldn't lose my relationship with them. So I think as a believer, I wasn't open to hearing a fact that would make me question. But as soon as I was questioning, I felt safe. I felt relieved to hear that people were questioning, because then I knew I wouldn't lose them.
Yeah.
So I think that's how I would make it through that.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is hearing that a loved one is in pain over church can often be more effective than hearing factual tidbits.
Absolutely.
Because it tugs on your heartstrings if they care about you.
Yes.
And then just knowing someone is no longer on the train belief-wise, that's enough to let you know that once you're ready to have questions or doubt, that there'll be a safe place for you to process it. They don't need to try to cram their knowledge down your throat. That might create the opposite effect and make you feel less safe to talk to them.
Absolutely.
Is that what I heard?
Yes.
That's
that
good.
was exactly it.
Okay.
I also
great.
kind of feel like with the second, but tell me if I'm wrong, with your parents is, some of that kind of control or fear is in the conditional love model of, we love and approve of you when you're like us, or when and so was part of that also a sense of relief of that judgment and control, guilt, shame. There's like a lot that can go into that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember at one point, like, it's definitely a roller coaster once you start questioning. And I remember going to my mom, and I knew she was questioning. And I said to her, "Will you still respect me if I stay in the church?" And she said, "Absolutely. Yeah. I will love and respect you no matter what you decide to do."
Yeah.
So I felt free to make my own decision.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It was quite a gift. Mm-hmm. A gift I wish I had given my husband earlier.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But you don't know until you know.
No.
And it sounds like, there's always this question of are Mormons in a cult or not? Is the church a cult? It sounds like the framework that your parents offered was not a cultish framework.
No. Yeah. No. They allowed us freedom of thought and love no matter what we did. Mm-hmm. I think I questioned that simply because of the church culture, and I just knew the pressure. Like, I knew people who every Sunday cried about the fact their kids left the church. I knew the pain it caused. But I was able to, at least at that point, believe my parents more than the church, that they would still love and respect me no matter what I decided.
Yeah.
That's
wow.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Julie was wondering, are you able to share what podcasts you listen to, the names of the podcasts, even as a believing Mormon or as a progressive or a liberal Mormon, or as a questioning Mormon, doubting Mormon, that were helpful to you? And we'll ask that at the end, but maybe this is more Mormon specific.
Yeah.
If you want to share. I'm
actually having a hard time remembering the name. I didn't listen to it for long because I listened to it for 8 weeks, and then I thought, this isn't real. This isn't true. This doesn't work for me.
Okay.
But I don't recall.
Yeah, that's okay.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. There's one called Faith Matters.
That's the one.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. So Faith Matters is good people, liberal,
Absolutely.
faithful Mormons. It's kind of the Terrell Givens, Patrick Mason kind of flavor. The Restore crowd, as it's
Absolutely.
now called.
Yeah, it was interesting to be exposed to that. I thought, wow, this is a really beautiful version of Mormonism, but it's not the version I believe in. And I couldn't figure out a way to make it fit together with my beliefs. It unfortunately really actually probably expedited my exit more than keeping me in.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and that's how it works for some people. And I'll also just say that it depends on the brain type. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to stereotype any profession, but like sometimes science or math or logic or integrity-based professions have a harder time with kind of that nuanced, liberal, middle-of-the-road kind of approach to religion.
Absolutely. It was black and white for me.
Yeah.
It was either all true or all false.
Yeah.
I couldn't find, even if it was false, there would be value in it. Like, I couldn't wrap my mind around it.
And then the other thing, going back to this idea of privilege, sometimes if you're facing your spouse leaving you and taking the kids, or your parents disowning you,
Right.
you have to make it work. And so then Restore or Faith Matters is like literally the only way you don't want to die.
Absolutely.
And you didn't have some of those pressures that other people might.
That's a good point. Yeah.
No, I did not have those pressures. I was free to make my own decision, and I'm very thankful for that. And I see the value that Faith Matters does. It didn't have to be that for me.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So how did you and your husband gracefully exit?
Well, we just decided we were done. So we emailed our bishop and said, hey, Bishop, I know we're in the primary presidency and Sunday school presidency, but we're not coming back.
Yeah.
Would you like to come over and take our temple recommends and key to the building?
Dang. Had you listened to Mormon Stories at that point? No.
No.
So had you gone to Reddit? Like, you didn't have any coaching on exiting the church?
No. And
Wow.
I wish I had found your podcast, The Gift of a Mormon Faith Crisis. That would have helped. I did delay telling my family. So we stopped attending the beginning of March in 2023, and I delayed telling my family until May.
Okay.
Because I knew it was going to be a difficult conversation, and I didn't want to do it the wrong way. But yeah, we told our bishop, said, hey, we're not coming anymore. And he was really kind. He came to our home. And what was funny is he just opened with, is it a history problem or a policy problem? And then we were just like, I don't know, a little bit of both. We're just not going to do this anymore. And so then we just stopped attending. And we had a few people in the ward reach out. We asked for no contact. I didn't want them coming to my doorstep because ironically, that was my final act as a Mormon, was going to inactive homes and inviting them to an activity.
Right. Yep.
I went and knocked on the door and said, hey, come to this activity. And then 2 days later, we emailed the bishop and said, we're done. And I didn't want people to coming looking for my children. It wasn't their business to come and invite my kids to church activities, give them rides, pressure them to do something that I wasn't okay with. So I asked for no contact, and we got a birthday card for my son in the mail, which is not in and of itself bad, but it is a violation of no contact. So I started to get really angry, and I thought, how do I get my address off the records? Like, this has got to be done. So I learned about quitmormon.org on TikTok, and we resigned our membership early May because I didn't want anyone coming for my children.
Yeah.
And then because of that, that's how I found Mormon Stories. So I actually resigned my membership before I ever listened to Mormon Stories. And the first episode I watched of you was the CES letter. I couldn't tell where you stood. The way you were interviewing Jeremy, I was like, I don't know what this John DeLink guy is up to. Like, I can't tell.
That's a compliment.
Yes, it was.
Because I want people to make their own decision.
Absolutely.
I don't want to feel like I'm steering them in any direction.
No. Yeah. And I found the CES letter like right after we resigned, and I read it. And that's when I thought, oh, this is not true.
So you
That's
stepped
what I
away.
Yes.
Before you concluded that it wasn't true.
Yes.
That's wild.
This is what I loved about your story. This is what stood out as so different, was that it was your lived experience with the going against, I mean, in quotation, the proclamation.
Yeah. Yes, my lived experience was that of pain.
Yeah.
And I saw the potential for harm for my children. I didn't think the church had harmed me at that point. I wasn't deep enough into researching, but I thought, no, this is too harmful. There's too much potential for harm here. So we're not doing this. And I don't want people coming for my children. So we resigned. And then I found out, oh, it's not true.
Yeah, which was a relief. It's not true.
Which was a relief because I felt kind of crazy. I thought I might be hurting myself, salvation-wise, hurting myself and my family by leaving. But I feel that it's not it's harmful, so I can't do it. And the reason I felt that a God could do this is because I believed in a God that would ask someone to sacrifice their child. I believed in a God that asked women to participate in polygamy. I believed in a God that asked for pain. So I thought God might be asking me to do something that's wrong for the sake of truth. But then when it wasn't true, I felt such relief because now I'm not damning myself to hell. Not that Mormons really believe in hell, but I'm not doing the wrong thing. And I was so worried about doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So
what does it mean if there's a God that wants you to do the harmful thing? And that's what God expects or wants.
what does it mean? I concluded it was a God that I didn't want to worship because I thought to myself, I'm a parent. I would never ask my child to do something that hurt them. I would never expect them to live a certain way and then not invite them back into my house. Like there's very few things my child could do where I would say, you can't stay here. But I believe in a God that does that. That doesn't make sense. So I don't believe in that God. So I don't believe in the Mormon God.
Especially if the thing that they're doing is providing for their family and doing what feels good for them and their spouse and their kids.
Yeah.
You're going to keep them out of your eternal presence for that?
Yeah. Or for just not going to church. Like honestly, not going somewhere every Sunday. Suddenly I'm not invited back. Like that doesn't make sense.
Or not believing X, Y, and Z. That's really hard to believe once you learn all the facts that have been withheld from you. You're going to keep your kid out of your eternal presence for that?
No.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
And then it just became, basically, I'd say I inhaled the Mormon Stories podcast for like 8 months. Like 6.
But don't blame me.
No.
She'd already lost her faith. I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
it was already gone.
I was telling the audience. Not,
no, it's true. It was already gone. And I just needed to feel like I wasn't crazy. And I needed to know more about the truth because I had built my entire life on this church and based on it being true.
Yeah.
And now it's not true. And how has this church informed me and who I am? And I just kept going.
You mentioned, I'll just list a couple. You mentioned Dan McClellan.
Yes, I watched an episode of Dan McClellan that you did. And at the end of it, I thought, all right, I don't think Jesus is divine. Like, I don't believe in Christianity now.
And by the way, that's not what I was going for with that episode.
No, I arrived at that conclusion myself because even just the fact that like the New Testament was written 70 years after the fact.
Parts of it were 70 years.
How can anyone remember anything that he said verbatim 70 years later?
Yeah.
Like, how do we know? So, and it just became something that I couldn't believe. And then, I just saw the holes in believing in Christianity, that believing that I was flawed and needed to be different and needed to be better than who I naturally was became very repugnant to me. I couldn't believe that. I didn't want to believe that I was an enemy to God or someone that needed saving. Because I didn't view my children that way. So why should I view myself that way? And so, yeah, I lost my belief in Mormonism. Then I lost my belief in Christianity. And then I lost my belief in God.
And you mentioned the Almost Awakened podcast with Bill Reel and Britt Hartley.
Yes, I listened to that a lot because they were talking about the things that I was wondering about. Like, how do you live a moral life without an external authority like God? Their phrase was like, how to live the good life or something like that. And that was very interesting to me because I'd always outsourced my moral authority. But then suddenly I don't believe in anything. What do? I was really confused. And they were talking about how to find it within, which was really interesting. And then Britt is also just a really active online content creator about atheism. And I was like, this makes a lot of sense to me that the God of the Bible probably doesn't exist because I think I don't like it. And I think if God's designed after us humans or we're designed after him, I think there are things that could be a lot better. So it doesn't really make sense that the God of the Bible exists the way we think it does. And yeah, I found myself lacking belief in everything.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was free falling. I felt like I couldn't tell really up from down to the point where I was just like laying on my bed and thinking, I don't know what's real anymore. I think the speed limit is real. And I have a job that I'm going to go to, and I'm going to do that because it keeps a roof over our head and food on the table. But everything else is up for debate on whether it's real or not.
Right.
But that's a scary and sometimes depressing and empty place for people to be. And by the way, this is only like, what, in the past year? Like, that's pretty recent.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes people years to figure this stuff out.
I think that my desire to just understand kept me going, and I just kept looking. I had to keep listening. I had to keep understanding. So I just kept deconstructing, and it went beyond religious belief. It was like economic systems, political systems,
deconstruct,
everything, to the point where I was like, we're all puppets
Yeah.
with no free will.
Right.
And we're just doing stuff because we think we need to. And guess what? We actually don't. So why are we doing this?
But that can be a problem, because then you're like, why do I be a parent? Why do I be a spouse? Why did I even get married? Why do I even work? Like, that can lead people to existential dread.
It did.
Oh, no.
I got there.
Oh, no.
I'm
glad you found Britt.
I know. I'm glad I found her before I hit rock bottom because it gave me, I knew I had somewhere to go. But yes, I hit rock bottom, existential dread. Parenting felt painful at points because I was parenting really young children. When I hit the rock bottom, I had a 6-month-old baby and like a 3-year-old.
Wow.
And parenting is very physically demanding at that point. And I felt like I'm suffering physically, mentally. I don't even know if I chose to have children because the church really made me think I had to. And I spend 40 hours a week working on spreadsheets. Like, this seems silly. It all felt silly.
Meaningless.
Yes, meaninglessness followed me everywhere. So yes, I hit rock bottom, and I thought, Britt Hartley's talked about this. I'm going to go find her stuff. And I remember that she's talked about a life worth experiencing. And I can tell you right now, my life right now is not worth experiencing. I had also tried to buy a house, which was a major financial goal of mine. And I came up to some roadblocks, and I thought, I can't achieve anything I want to. So why try? And I said, okay, Britt Hartley says I can create a life worth experiencing. What does this even mean? Who am I? And what do I want to do? So I started where she suggested, which was with the body. I wanted to improve the experience of living in my body. And this meant that I stopped breastfeeding my child because she was doing better on formula. She was having digestive issues with breast milk. I didn't want to figure it out. And I was like, formula works. We're doing this.
Yeah.
I'm going to have my body back. It's going to be mine. It's not creating a human or feeding a human. It's mine now.
Right.
I'm going to get back into my regular exercise routine because it had been hard to be consistent before then. And I also sleep trained my daughter. I was like, I'm sleeping through the night now. So I improved my sleep. I started exercising, and I started changing my relationship with food. Food used to be one of my only comforts. I would have to eat to feel better. And I started to say, I need to eat to fuel myself to feel good.
Yeah.
So I changed. And that idea of like refueling for health and feeling good started when I was pregnant. At one of your podcasts, Margie, you talked about at one point just taking in data and noticing how you feel. So as a pregnant person, I was like, all right, I'm going to have this second piece of cake and see how it feels. It didn't feel great. And so I just started noticing. And so that led me to making different decisions to feel better.
Right.
About how I fueled my body.
Man, I don't even know that I've learned that lesson yet. I'm 56.
I wouldn't say I'm perfect at it either. It's a tough one, but
I just have the cake. No, I'm kidding. I know I'm trying.
Yeah.
But it's so powerful, this idea of Brits to start with just improving your experience of the body.
Yeah.
It's tangible.
It's tangible.
Yes.
I could feel it. I could feel it in my body, and that felt real when everything felt like pointless.
Yep.
So I improved my physical health, and then I just decided to start experimenting to figure out who I was. Like, I am going to see what it's like to go to this class where we talk about tarot cards and just see what that's like and meet people and see how that feels and just kind of learn how my body talks to me. Mm-hmm. And I actually talk about this more in a piece I wrote for Exponent 2 that comes out in January.
Nice.
Yeah. So subscribe to Exponent 2 and get my piece. It's called The Voice Within. And I really learned how to listen to my body and figure out what I wanted. And I started a daily ritual of coffee, which feels like totally heathen as a Mormon. But I was like, let's do it. Let's figure out coffee. Right. And I did. And it became something that was worth waking up for.
Oh, I hear you.
Marky and I are so with you on that.
I hear you. Mm-hmm.
Coffee is true.
And
something's true. Coffee is true.
The other thing I love about what you're describing is it's moving from a place where experience in the world is dead to aliveness. You're exploring it like it's new. Like, I wonder. You're leaning into curiosity.
Absolutely. And what I loved about coffee is it was something that was for me. It wasn't for my children. Yeah. It wasn't for my job. Like, it was for me.
Yep.
And it was something that made it worth waking up for every day, which I needed that because my life was in service to others in a lot of ways.
And isn't it powerful? Just the act of you wake up and it's first you. Mm-hmm. You have something for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that was a ritual I started.
And by the way, coffee isn't an addiction.
No.
It's just joy.
As it turns out, it's so many things. It's joy. It's soothing. It's ritual. It like makes you feel present.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's this impression that coffee is all about you're too tired in the morning and so you need it. I wake up at 3 or 4 every morning. I need 0 to get up in the morning. I do coffee almost like it's a drug. I do coffee for the joy. Full stop.
Absolutely. And I even shifted to decaf because I couldn't handle the caffeine. Yeah. So it truly was for the joy of coffee. Right. Mm-hmm. So I started that. And then I felt like I had to really deal with the problem of suffering because I felt like in many ways I was suffering with being a parent or being a member of a capitalistic society or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I had to deal with suffering and I had to confront that suffering felt random, that there was nothing to do to prevent it sometimes. And that was really challenging. And I even kind of walked back and said, I think I have to believe in God for a little bit here because I can't function thinking about my children being really harmed and maybe dying and not believe in God. I don't think I can function that way. So for a time, I went back to a belief in God simply to function. And I kind of did it consciously. So I knew it wasn't entirely intellectually honest, but I was like, this is a crutch I need right now. So I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
But then I felt that I didn't need that anymore. I felt I had come to terms with how things just operate a little randomly and sometimes not for our good. And then I felt a real lack of spirituality in my life. It felt hard in some ways to just not have that moment of reflection. Like I didn't miss praying because I didn't believe in prayer.
Yeah.
But I missed the contemplation and reflection. So I started, honestly, doing a daily tarot card reading because it's generative. I didn't do it for divination, future telling. Mm-hmm. I did it because it tells the human story of emotion and archetypes, and it can just generate something for me to think about.
Right.
So I just started doing that, and it just plunged me into a world of feminine spirituality because there are people who have more literal belief in tarot cards or something that is more like the witchy realm. And I just enjoyed learning about that. It was something for me to study, something for me to connect with, something to think about that wasn't male-centered because Mormonism is so male-focused, especially in the spiritual sense. So I started doing that, and it was really helpful. And then I also really started connecting with the outdoors in a very casual way. I'm not a big outdoors person. I'm talking about like standing in my yard, maybe barefoot in the grass, or when I'm outside, just taking in a deep breath of that air and just noticing what it feels like to be outside right now. And noticing the seasons. Like, so much of our culture really likes sameness, and we like to run at a really high speed all the time.
Right.
And do the same thing all year round. Whereas when we're more in touch with the seasons, we're really living in harmony with what's going on. We're sprinting in the summer and we're resting in the winter. And it's like we're changing our wardrobe. We're changing. I change how I just don't even do makeup in the summer for that reason, as just taking a breather from that. But I also then kind of slow down my activities outside of the house in the winter for time to reflect and be inside.
I hear you. I am loving it.
I can't take credit for it. You definitely gave me the idea. You and John Larson, Margie, first put the idea in my head of like living with the seasons. And I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And that became, and then I learned about these things called the pagan sabbats, where it's the wheel of the year. There's like 8 of them. They happen like every 6 weeks. And it's just like a change in season, basically. And you mark it with just noticing the nature what's happening outside, and also like what it means for you in this time. Usually, if it's something like, Yule is easy because that's Christmas. But if it's a different one, like Letha, the longest day of the year, I'll probably like light a candle, set an intention, and probably watch the sunset since it's the longest day of the year.
Right.
And just pay attention to it. And it made me feel like I inhabited the earth rather than being a part of this thing where I'm going to be a god someday and I'm going to control this earth or an earth. And I was now part of it. And that was really grounding.
Yeah. What I'm hearing also in all these things you're describing is connection.
Yes.
Connection to the larger world, connection to yourself, connection to your experience. Yeah.
Absolutely. I had to start connecting with what was going on around me, because in like a greater sense, it all felt pointless.
Yeah.
But when I zoomed in on my life, it made sense. I could tangibly touch what was going on.
Right.
And additionally, I had to get off social media because it really affected me negatively. And I had my husband like lock me out of my stuff about 18 months ago. And I haven't been back.
I may relate to that, Cate.
Yeah.
Also me.
Also Amazon.
Also Amazon is next. I absolutely relate to that. Tried things on my own. I feel like I'm disciplined in a lot of areas in my life. So it was really curious for me to actually realize, oh, wow, I'm making efforts and I'm not able to do this on my own.
I wasn't.
So I was just so tickled to read that because I was like, me too, Cate, me too.
I'm glad I'm not alone. Yeah, I had to, because I was like doom scrolling about how I'll never be able to buy a house. And it made me feel like I couldn't accomplish anything. But I was like, okay, this is like living out here. Yeah. But if I zoom in on my life and I take out the noise of social media, my life is good.
Yes.
I am healthy. I'm safe. Like, I need to not engage in this. So
absolutely.
I don't.
So powerful.
Thank you. It's been a really good decision. And I love it. I'm not going back.
Yeah. That's really beautiful.
Thanks.
So that's interesting. Now, on the one hand, from my perspective, you're quite young. But if I'm thinking about the flow of your story, part of the reason why you became a provider was so that you could have a house and a mortgage. And you're saying that to this day, that dream has been elusive.
It has been, but I will say.
I can also say it's historically difficult times to buy a house.
It absolutely is.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely is. And it was 2 years ago. It felt insurmountable.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to say we're actually closing on our first house next week.
What?
Oh, that is
know.
amazing.
Wait, wickedness never was happiness.
I know. Turns out it's easier to save up for a house when you're not paying tithing.
Oh my gosh.
Like facts right there.
Wow.
Indeed.
But also the market's changed a bit in my
Yeah.
favor at this point. So
Well, we're happy for you.
thank you.
So you're closing on a house soon?
Yes.
Wow.
We are.
Congrats.
Thank you. We're so excited. It is a major life accomplishment. And I don't think we would have been able to do this had we pursued my husband's career rather than mine. So,
Wow. Yeah.
and I know you don't have to have a house to be happy or fulfilled in life, but it was a goal of mine. So it felt very important to my life path.
Yeah.
That should matter.
Yeah, that it felt important.
You in the audience, what brings you happiness and joy actually should matter.
Absolutely. It really should. So that's been a really great development.
Fun.
Yeah. Another thing that just I'm struck by as you're talking is how much of Mormonism is about the future.
Yes.
You're always kind of living for a future time you never quite get to. And what you've done and what you've described around, I don't know how you would talk about it. Would you talk about it as rebuilding? How would you talk about what you've been describing? Rebuilding?
Absolutely.
Or?
Rebuilding.
Okay.
I burnt it down to nothing.
Yeah. Is that it seems to me that you have prioritized the process, the present moment,
Absolutely.
which is a major reorientation of a life.
Huge, huge. I lived for the future as a Mormon all the time. And I've reoriented to the present to the point where I look forward to the moment before I go to bed where I do those deep breaths to get me to sleep because I'm really there and I'm feeling what it feels like to go to sleep. And I'm looking forward to those moments where I hug my children and I kiss their sweet little cheeks and just hold them while they're young and know that this moment is not forever and that I really want to be here for it.
Yeah.
And not live for the future of some supposed happiness, but find the happiness now. My husband's always been more focused on the present moment. He's definitely helped me get there. He's the one who was saying, hey, I know we're saving for a house, but I think we should go on a vacation every once in a while and like have a good time and make some memories and go do fun things with our family. And I finally got on board with that, and it's been a really good change in our life. So 100%, I have a life worth experiencing, and I have a presence in my life that's worth being around for. That feels very fulfilling and meaningful and just like what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And it never really felt that way in the church. I always felt like I was hustling, trying to change who I was, trying to change who and what I was doing. Like it was always about striving, and I have stopped. I kind of have an aversion to self-help books at this point. I'm like, I'm not interested. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm not interested in like fundamentally changing myself.
Right.
So I'm not going to do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know if this is going to land, but as I hear you describe your reconstructed spirituality, am I hearing some Gnosticism or some, I don't want to say paganism or Wiccanism, because those frameworks often have negative associations. But when you're tuning in nature and the seasons and the present moment, it gives some of that.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would definitely say I lean more agnostic, atheist, paganism stuff, but like super lightly. I held Mormonism very tightly. I hold these things that I do now believe very lightly. But yes, I'm much more connected to the earth, seasons, myself. And that's what I care about at this point.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about your reconstruction before we ask you those final questions you filled out?
Yeah. I think I've hit everything. I would say that it's a daunting process to start, but I'm really glad I did it. And I'm really glad that Britt Hartley is putting out the work that she's putting out there, because it got pretty dark there. And I was able to I was at least able to believe, hey, this can get better. Mm-hmm. So it's worth doing.
Yeah.
And the book and the channel is No Nonsense Spirituality.
Yes.
Just for those who want to check that out.
And the book is fabulous.
Absolutely. It came out like a month after I decided to start reconstruction. I was like, perfect.
How about that?
This is good. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, what a powerful story.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Margie had the idea, and we agreed that from now on we're going to end with a few standard questions. So
that are lighter fare. It's lighter fare.
Yeah, I like it. I liked the question, so I'm excited.
So the first one is, what's a book, podcast, TV show, or a combination that you have enjoyed lately?
So a book is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman, I think. It's so good. I really liked it. It's a novel. It's a story about a woman who goes through hardship, and she's a little quirky, kind of says whatever she thinks, but she finds community, which is definitely really hard after Mormonism. And I really resonated with her struggle to find community, but also just like was so happy for her at the end of the book.
Yep.
So
nice. Okay, that's Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman, just to repeat.
Yes, I completely loved it. So highly recommend. And then just like a show I'm really enjoying right now is called The Man on the Inside on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So funny.
Ted Danson
is the best. I loved him in The Good Place. Like anything that Mike Schur is creating, I'm watching because it's so funny and heartwarming.
Yes.
So highly recommend.
It's kind of like a whodunit in a old folks home.
Yes, exactly. And the
second season though is outside of that.
Yeah, it's outside of that. It's different, but still just as good. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've really prioritized, like even with these two items, like I really prioritized exposing myself to things that bring me pleasure and joy.
Love it.
Rather than just like thinking deeply about life, because like I did that too hard and it hurt a lot. So I'm definitely prioritizing things that are funny and enjoyable to consume.
Nice.
So important.
Mm-hmm.
Preserving maybe some mental state or some energy or some,
Mm-hmm.
All right. Who is someone you admire?
My hero right now is Katie Ludlow Rich.
Who's been on Mormon Stories?
She has. That's where I first discovered her. She is a writer, an independent scholar. She wrote 50 Years of Exponent 2, which is a really great book about the history of that publication. And she's just focusing on centering the female experience, which I hadn't even thought of until I listened to her. And I realized, wow, my experience has always been putting myself in the experience of a man and listening to male perspectives. So I'm going to take a break. And this past year, I only read books written by women. I made one exception for Ben Park's American Zion. But I only read books and listened to podcasts that were interviewing women because I wanted to expose myself to the female experience to better understand myself. So, and that's what her work is centered on from what I can tell. And any podcast or paper she's doing, I'm just like trying to get my hands on it.
Have you heard about, so yes, on Kate Ludlow Rich, have you seen that Amy McPhee-Allebest with Breaking Down Patriarchy has a video version of Dear Mormon Man, What Would You Have Me Do out?
Yes, I have seen that.
Yeah.
And that's an incredible piece that everyone should, watch.
Yeah. Shout out to Amy and Breaking Down Patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then last question, what is something that has been lighting you up lately?
So we are actually preparing to get a cat, which is really exciting me because I have always really loved animals.
Yeah.
And it was something that I like rediscovered about myself in the past year. And it took some convincing for my husband, but he has agreed and we're getting a cat. And I'm just really excited to give my children that experience. I had a cat growing up and just also doing something that, I want.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's been fun to research, like preparing for it. And my siblings all have cats and just like bonding over it. And
Yep.
so I'm very excited.
Yes. And cats are like perfect, well, animals, I think,
general.
can be in general, but cats with regard to presence,
Oh, yeah.
right? There's something about watching a cat.
Mm-hmm.
A cat is not like overly preoccupied about others.
No, they want to do what they want, and they're there to lay in the sun
That's right.
and be taken care of.
That's right.
Occasionally chase some string.
Yes, exactly. So it's just exciting to reconnect with that part of myself. It kind of like dawned on me a couple months ago, and I was like, whoa, I really need to do this. Like, I need to do this. It's not just a want, it's a need. And it's exciting.
Isn't it awesome to become your own prophet? A little bit?
Yes.
That sounds prideful to a believing mind. Well, I don't need God. I don't need a prophet. I'm greater. But it's not like that. It's compatible with Mormonism in the sense that I think Mormons would call it the Holy Ghost, but just prayer, just really listening to the inner voice.
Yes.
Call it the Holy Ghost if you want. Call it God, but also call it your inner wisdom. Just get in contact with it, in or out of belief, in or out of the church.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's been the biggest gift of this entire experience is just getting to know myself because I didn't develop myself. I didn't try to.
Yeah, that's right.
But now I get to.
And Jesus even said, not to frame this in Jesus, but Jesus, for those who are Christian, Jesus said the kingdom of God is within.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Sure did.
So that it's compatible. You Christians out there, you can do this too.
Yes.
You don't have to lose your faith in God or Jesus to be born again.
Absolutely.
You're born again.
I am. I've made it.
Yeah,
It feels good.
I just love how you are allowing your own experience to have value, you know, in your own world, as opposed to like this sense of like you have to give yourself up.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be invisible. So I'm just loving that for you. Curious, adventuring, leaning into things that seem pleasurable.
Absolutely. It's been a joy. And it didn't feel that way before.
Yeah.
And it's been wonderful.
And your kids are doing okay, you think?
They're great. Yes, they're thriving. Yeah, they're 4 and 2 right now. It's a lot of fun. They love each other, which is so gratifying. So I love them. I can't imagine my life without them.
Who knew men could nurture?
My husband's doing a great job.
I don't, not that
John
you're not.
Dehlin.
I'm just joking.
No, I feel really grateful that we're all doing what's best for us.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the way.
It is.
That's the way. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, Cate Smith, what a beautiful story. And it's under 2 hours and 10 minutes. We broke a land speed record on Mormon Stories today.
Nice. Here to help.
And Margie, thanks for being co-host and for making Mormon Stories podcast better.
It's a pleasure, John.
All right. Well, any final words, Cate? Or are we good?
No, thank you for having me. This was great.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today on Mormon Stories. Hope you've enjoyed it. Again, we exist at the generosity of our donors. So if you're a donor, thank you. If you're not and you want to see content like this continue or you value it, please go to mormonstories.org/donate and become a monthly donor. And we'll continue providing this content for as long as you value it. We also really appreciate it if you'll like and subscribe to these channels, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, etc. You can find us all there. We love your comments, especially on YouTube and Spotify. That helps with the conversation. It helps with the algorithm. So please comment, like, and subscribe. Also, we love your emails at mormonstories@gmail.com. And then finally, the way that we found out about Cate, I think, is that she applied and recorded a 3-minute application video. So if you are a good storyteller with a good story, please record a 3-minute video on why you want to be on the show and why you think our viewers and listeners will value what you have to say. Along with filling out the application, you can go to mormonstories.org/apply to apply to be on the show. We get 1,000 applications a year, but we're always looking every week. We're like, what's next? What's going to be a good fit for us? So we can't accept all applications, but we will accept ones that are a good fit. So please apply. Right?
Oh, yeah. Do it.
All right. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today on Mormon Stories. Be good to each other. Be kind to each other. Be a bridge builder and a peacemaker. And we'll see you all again soon on another episode of Mormon Stories podcast. Take care, everybody.